people who have joined Equality NC and many organizations like Planned Parenthood and the ACLU and fighting for our rights. We're here today essentially because we are fighting for our lives in terms of reproductive health care, voting rights, and we've seen assaults on our trans youth in this state. All of us, I will say, speaking for myself, are exhausted and exasperated by this horrific attack on our communities. We have a great lineup of speakers to address many bills that we have before us, but specifically we're here today because of House Bill 808, which threatens to take away life-saving health care for our trans and gender non-conforming youth in the state. We will not let this stand. We will fight along the way, and you'll hear from many speakers who are in the battle, who are joining arms with us. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our Education Policy Director, Rebby Kern.
Good afternoon. Hello all, I'm Rebby Kern. My pronouns are they, them, and theirs, and it's an honor to be here with you today. Albeit we come back together, unfortunately, under circumstances where our lives are under attack once again. But lately, I've been dreaming. Just something I do a lot, and Octavia Butler continues to remind us to continue imagining and dreaming. And I think ahead into the future, maybe 30 years, maybe even 50 years into the future. And I look around and I see my community. Some of us are young, some of us are old, but we are together vibrant. We look around and the trees are lush and the grass is green, and we are together, connected. We can look back on 2023 and say, we did that. We can look back at that time and understand that we did what we needed to do to get through it together. We join arms today across North Carolina, knowing that all of our bodily autonomy is under attack. From how we learn in the classroom, to how we care for ourselves with medical providers, all the way into how we express ourselves through athletics, through expression. And knowing that our choice is ours to make. No matter what happens in this building today, your power is yours. And there is nothing that can take that away. So that our community can grow old together. So that we can move together and see our community reflected in the textbooks the way it was always meant to be, truthful. And that we can remember that we can continue to lock arms and move through into the future the way that we've always imagined. Thank you to all of the young people who are taking their warm summer hours to be here with us today. Thank you to the medical professionals that continue to put our community first, under medical best practice proven globally, for our educators that are fighting to continue to ensure that they can care for students day in and day out. All of our families, all of the professionals here, and all of the regular trans and queer folks that are here to say, we will not be erased. I'd like to invite Laura up to the stage.
Hey y'all, I'm not a public speaker, so I'm gonna rely on my notes. My name is Laura Lay. I'm the impact coordinator at the Campaign for Southern Equality. I was born in this state, I was raised in this state, and I still live in this state. My pronouns are they, them. As someone who relies on access to gender-affirming care, my heart is breaking and, quite frankly, full of righteous anger. Watching the NCGA attempt to ram through legislation that would block trans youth from accessing this care is life-saving, this care is life-affirming, and most importantly, this care is our inalienable human right. At the Campaign for Southern Equality, we've worked with hundreds of families across the South, many who are grappling with the passage of gender-affirming care bans in their own home states. These parents all tell us the same thing. They're going to do what's best for their kid, and that means doing whatever it takes to access gender-affirming health care. We are prepared to help families identify out-of-state care and support the increased costs of getting there. I hope lawmakers know that passing HB808 won't stop North Carolina families from doing what they need to do. It won't stop trans youth from being trans, and it won't change the fact that our bodies are our own.
That's right.
But what it will do is add immense unnecessary hardship and burden to families who are already up against so much. North Carolina does not need to pass this cruel attack. Now I want to take a moment to speak directly to trans youth and their loved ones watching today and say loud and clear, you are loved, you have a right to thrive, and there is a huge community here in North Carolina and nationwide, worldwide, that supports you. We're in this together, and we're not going anywhere. Thank you. And I want to pass this to Liz.
Hello, Liz Barber. I am with the ACLU of North Carolina. So as the speakers before me have covered very well, these laws are wrong. They're also unconstitutional. The ACLU nationwide is tracking 491 pieces of legislation that are anti-LGBTQ, and many of those are anti-trans. I'm sad to say that North Carolina is responsible for a good chunk of that, as we have seen just last week 4 of these bills were moving. Just last week in Arkansas, we saw a district court judge strike down a very similar bill. And when I say strike down, I don't mean this was like preliminary on the eve of it going into effect. I mean 2 years of litigation and nearly a 2-week trial later, District Court Judge Moody struck it down as both a violation of equal protection, a violation of due process, and a violation of First Amendment. So you might say, remind me again, when we talk about violating equal protection, what does that mean? Well, as the court reminded us in Grimm versus Bluchester, put another way, state action is unconstitutional when it creates arbitrary or irrational distinctions between classes of people out of a bare desire to harm a politically unpopular group. That is what we have before the General Assembly today. I'm glad it's only 1 o'clock. At trial, the court heard testimony and considered the efficacy of gender-affirming care. He considered the risks and side effects associated with gender-affirming care for minors. He looked at desistance rates and regret. He looked at the proper evaluation and informed consent that healthcare providers were doing before providing this care. And the court held, quote, rather than protecting children or safeguarding medical ethics, the evidence showed that the prohibited medical care improves the mental health and well-being of patients, and that by prohibiting it, the state undermined the interests it claims to be advancing. Continuing, the court said, the testimony of well-credentialed experts, doctors who provide gender-affirming medical care in Arkansas, and families that rely on that care directly refutes any claim by the state that the act advances an interest in protecting children. Second, the judge said even if it had withstood the equal protection analysis, that it violates due process. That forbids the states to deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The liberty interest at stake in this case, the interest of parents in the care, custody, and control of their children, is perhaps the oldest fundamental liberty interest recognized by this court. The court found that gender-affirming care ban for minors would take away these parents' fundamental rights to provide health care for their children and give that right to the legislature. This decision sends a clear message. Fear-mongering and misinformation about this health care do not hold up to scrutiny. It hurts trans youth and must end. Science, medicine, and law are clear. Gender-affirming care is necessary to ensure that trans kids in Arkansas, in North Carolina, and everywhere can thrive and be healthy. Now I'll turn it over to Jason from Planned Parenthood South Atlantic.
Thank you.
Hello all. My name is Jason and I'm the organizer with Planned Parenthood South Atlantic. I'm thankful so many of you are here to listen, as frustrated as I am that we're once again here having the same conversation. In the midst of Pride Month, celebrating honesty and beauty in our differences, Once again, our trans communities are under attack through legislation targeting essential and life-saving healthcare. To be clear, Planned Parenthood South Atlantic is proud to offer gender-affirming healthcare, including hormone therapy services, at all of our health centers in North Carolina. And we will always stand hand in hand to fight, to protect the rights and freedoms of all of us, especially our most vulnerable, and especially in the season meant for us to celebrate being proud in our own unique identities. Gender-affirming care, guided by evidence-based standards of care, is considered a medical necessity by nearly every major medical association in the United States due to the overwhelming evidence that it greatly improves the health outcomes of patients who are transgender and non-binary. Restrictions on this care, opposed by medical bodies and organizations across the country, who consistently warn such policies threaten the lives of our transgender young folks. We all deserve to act in our own self-determination. Trans youth are more than included in that. Gender-affirming care is essential, and it allows trans youth to embrace adolescents as themselves and to protect their mental health and well-being. Trans youth deserve to be carried throughout their health care and their lives with love, intentional care, and integrity. That's what we're fighting for. Health care, bodily autonomy, and dignity. Thank you for being in this fight with us. And I'm going to pass it to Dr. Riley Smith.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Riley Smith, I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a family physician. I grew up right here in Raleigh, and I've dedicated my career to serving patients of all ages and walks of life, including providing gender-affirming care for transgender adolescents and adults. Through this work, I've had the absolute privilege and honor to bear witness to one of the most profound, life-changing processes that a person can go through. Supporting young people through this journey is the greatest part of my job, and I cannot begin to describe the fear I have knowing that care could be taken away. We know for a fact that laws banning gender-affirming care will have dire consequences. The data on that are clear. I could stand up here and recite statistics on rates of violence, harassment, depression, or suicide. But this work isn't about numbers or percentages. It's about people. It's about the 15-year-old living in a conservative town who drove 2 hours to his appointments, and by starting testosterone, gained the confidence he needed to finish high school and ended up going to college with a full scholarship. It's about the 16-year-old who was so dysphoric about her body that she had to turn the lights off just to take a shower, but who started taking estrogen and eventually found the courage to join her school soccer team, where she cried. It's about a kid who attended a rally just like this, saw an openly trans lawyer speaking for an advocacy organization, and realized that he could, in fact, transition, go to medical school, and become an openly trans doctor. These are the stories and real lives of my patients, and I'm honored I get to be a part of their life story. It is the most incredible, challenging, beautiful, gut-wrenching, and heartwarming parts of my job. When I say that access to gender-affirming care is life-saving, that is not hyperbole, and these politicians simply have no idea what it means to take that care away. To tell a young person that they cannot be who they know at their very core that they are. To tell them that they must wait to access care that we know is safe, effective, evidence-based, and supported by every major medical organization in the U.S. To tell them that they must suffer because our legislators are too afraid of anyone who does not look or act a certain way. Despite what Republicans might have you believe, this healthcare is neither new nor controversial. Unlike them, I have trained for over a decade to learn the science and the art of medicine, including all of the considerations that go into providing gender-affirming care. Understanding what is involved in a family's decision to support their child through medical transition can only take place through a thoughtful, open conversation between a patient, their parents, and their trusted clinician. We do not need politicians in the exam room with us making those decisions for your family. We must protect the sanctity of the physician-patient relationship. We must protect the right of parents and their children to decide what is best for them. We must protect trans young people who deserve every opportunity to thrive as their most authentic selves. Finally, I want to speak directly to all the young trans folks out there. I promise you that myself and thousands of other people are fighting alongside you every single day. You are cherished, you are celebrated, and you are so important. I assure you that my colleagues and I will continue to provide care to the full extent of our medical licenses as widely as we are able to and as long as we are able to. Because it is the right thing to do, and it is what you deserve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Margaret Villadu. I appreciate getting invited to speak here today. Again, like I said, my name is Margaret Villadu. I'm here from Chatham County. I'm a mom of 4. I'm also the spouse of a recently retired Air Force veteran of 20 years. We decided to return home to North Carolina primarily because we knew that our child would be safe, protected, and have access to medical care here in North Carolina. So when I was in active cancer treatment for gastrointestinal cancer, grade 1, stage 3B, my son reached the point of care when his team, including myself and his dad, finally approved HRT. I insisted on scheduling my appointments around his appointments because his life-saving medical care is just as important as my own. Now, North Carolina legislators are set to take away my parental rights, the rights that I fought to be able to exercise during my own fight with cancer. Where are my parental rights in this equation? This is a private and personal medical decision. Trans-affirming medical care saved my child's life. It is a misconception that blockers and HRT are handed out like candy. It is a long process. It involves therapy. It involves meeting with multiple doctors. It involves parental consent. It involves consent of the children. It involves meeting with multiple therapists. And this is a private decision that should take place between the patient, the parents, and their care team. My most important job is being a mom, and my most important role as a parent is to guide my children to have functional autonomy in order to grow into happy, healthy, whole adults. I wasn't as woke I wasn't always as woke as I appear to be. Part of being a parent is learning along with your child. My oldest is 21. I didn't realize I was forcing society's ideas of identity on her. She's often lamented to me that she wished that I was the fully accepting parent that I am now when she was growing up. People are who they are. No legislation, no pressure, no withholding of affection will change who a person is. We can either accept people's identities, or we can try to drive ourselves crazy trying to force people to be someone that they're not. And in the end, they are still that person inside. They're just buried under layers of depression, self-loathing, hate, fear, rejection. So I'm just here to say that my life's sun turned around when we finally realized that we could choose to accept our child, or we could have no child. One way or another, that was what we were facing. And I reject the idea that these parental right laws that are being put forward have anything to do with parental rights any more than they have to do with legislating a particular brand of morality. And let's face it, not everyone in North Carolina, not everyone in this county, not everyone in the United States has the same religion or even the same morality. We should not be legislating morality. The rights of all men are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. My heart goes out to all of the trans people who have had to sit through the General Assembly, misidentifying them, misgendering them, calling their identities a thing that is so essential to them a fad. Shame on anyone who would treat someone, their constituent, that way. And most especially the trans youth. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Again, thank you all for being here. I'd like to just say that we will never stop fighting for the trans youth in the state. No matter what happens in this building behind us, we are united as organizations, as parents, as people who know what is the right thing to do in fighting for our youth, in fighting for our voting rights, in fighting for our schools, in fighting for our freedoms. Thank you all for being here. I want to ask the press if you would like to ask any questions before we close. All right. If we have no questions, some of the speakers will be available for one-on-one interviews if you would like to do so. For the people who are gathered here, we invite you to stay around. We're going to be here to show force, to let them know that we're not taking this sitting down, and that we have not been consulted about our very lives. We ask you to stand with us in protest as we continue to fight. The fight is not over. We'll never stop fighting for our rights. Thank you.
Thank you.